cheese. All right, and welcome back to That's Some Cheese, part of the Vendetta Sports Podcast Network. Today is Thursday, February 11th, and we have our guy, our Australian correspondent, Jarrod Prosser, who's joining the show again. You've seen him in the past. We're going to be talking about some NBA topics today. Of course, we have our producer in the studio all day, J.K. Dobbins, 27, touchdown, Ohio State. Alex, how are you? We had to wake him up early today.
I'm good. Had some black coffee, got fired up, screamed to wake myself up. Felt like a little Mike Tyson before a fight or something, but I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Jarrod, what's going on?
Geez, if Alex is like Mike Tyson before a fight, my earlobes are glad I'm on the other side of the planet. Right up until that point, I was doing well. Now I'm a little scared.
Well, it's going to be a long flight to get there, so I think you're safe.
Hopefully he calms down, the coffee wears off by then, and the urge to, bite and punch and stuff. But no, I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well.
Yeah, so we're going to be going over some NBA awards, the 6 major NBA awards, sort of like a prediction sort of thing, and then we'll do another show at the end of the year, see how things went and maybe how things changed or whatever. But anyway, let's not waste any time. Let's go right for the throat, right for the kill shot. Jarrod, MVP. What do you got? Floor is yours.
Well, I guess straight up, my preseason prediction, which I put in a piece, was a three-peat for Giannis. I wouldn't have him in my top probably 5 or 6 at the moment, and that's no slight on Giannis. He's been fantastic this season, but there's been a whole range of players who have just performed brilliantly. If we were looking at a per-game basis, I'd probably say Kevin Durant, but to me, he's just missed too many games so far. So for me, I had a top 3. We'll count them down 3-1 if you want, Trey.
Let's do it.
Okay. Number 3, drum roll. As always, LeBron James. He's a cyborg. He never dies. The man is 62, 63 years old now, and he's still putting up 25, 8, and 8.
75, yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at his hairline, hopefully he doesn't watch this because
he's got a better hairline than me, and I'm a lot younger than him.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I probably shouldn't say that with the boss here, should I? I'll just keep digging a hole for myself here. Now, LeBron's amazing. He's just so metronomic these days. He is the engine that keeps the championship favorite running. As good as Anthony Davis is, as good as that supporting cast has become, it still lives and dies with what LeBron James can do. Like I said, 25, 8, and 8, over a steal a game. He's launching 7 threes a game, which is a career high, and he's hitting them at 40%. And these aren't just, catch and shoot threes.
We never would have thought that 10 years ago.
Oh, God. To be honest, even 5 years ago, I wouldn't have picked he'd be doing this. And the threes he's taking and making, they're not quite Dame Lillard type threes, but they're not far off it. There's a lot of zero pass offense stuff where he takes 2 or 3 dribbles over half court and launches from a legit 30 feet, and he's making them. This is a guy who, when he came out of high school, he, as you said, Trey, he couldn't shoot. He had a range of about 8 feet, but he has become a legitimate sniper off the dribble. And I mean, how do you stop that? It's possibly the one concession he's made to the fact that he is getting old. Is that the 3-pointer has become his primary weapon as opposed to his bailout. It used to be that the drive would open up the 3 for him, but now it's almost like the 3 is opening up the drive because he doesn't quite have the first step. But man, he just keeps finding ways to make things happen. And defensively, he doesn't quite turn it on every game, but when he does, and it might only be for 6 or 7 minutes in the last quarter in a close game, but when he turns it on, he's still a brick wall. He's still one of the most frightening two-way players in the game for those moments where he decides to flick the turbos on.
I hate talking about LeBron because we got producer Alex, who's just, I don't know what he does. He's probably got fanboy posters in his wall, so I can't do it.
I love that guy. I love that guy. Well, also the fact that in the past 3 games for the Lakers, it's double overtime, overtime, and overtime. And that's the first time since 1991 that we're seeing back-to-back-to-back overtime games. And when you think about the Lakers in that sense, it's LeBron's longevity. He shouldn't have to play overtime game, overtime game, overtime game, because that's just not the team that he's always been built on.
I think the threes are more methodical, where he knows he doesn't want to take poundings for, 75 games now? Like, the more threes he takes, the less wear and tear on his body come playoff time anyway.
Oh, look, absolutely. Here's where we're going to, go into the realms of fantasy here. I'm going to compare my basketball to LeBron James for a moment. This could go sideways. So in the old man's league that I play in down here in Australia, we had a short team last season, and despite the fact that I'm 6 foot tall, I had to play centre. And playing against 6'6" blokes, I just copped an absolute beating every game. Still played it fairly well, but you're just not big enough, not strong enough. Now we've got bigger guys this season. I'm standing outside and running the offense and jacking threes, and it's amazing how much fresher you feel the day after when you're not getting just slammed into by 6'6", 125 kilo blokes all day. And I can understand completely why LeBron is more than happy taking the three. It saves his legs for, as Alex said, these types of moments where he's forced to play 40 minutes in back-to-back games, or 38 minutes in back-to-back games. If he's having to do that as somebody who tries to get to the bucket every time, it may not be this season, but it might reduce what he does next season or the season after. The way he's going, he could legitimately be a starter, and a really, really good starter, if not an all-star, when he's 40. So I think he's, outside of all the time he invests and the money he invests in his body, he's finding a way to maintain himself for the long term as well.
I know how you feel. Every time somebody turns in a bad blog, I don't wake up the same the next day. I still have nightmares from people turning in bad blogs. And I don't get a good night rest that night.
So
where's the terrors on you?
No, look, I'm continually amazed by LeBron. I mean, 25 years ago, people marveled at the way that Stockton and Malone, were able to do what they did in their late 30s. And now LeBron is doing that and more in his late 30s or mid 30s still. But man, he's just an incredible player. But for me, he's third. My number 2, Nikola Jokic. Incredible numbers. I mean, 25, 12, and 9 is absurd for a centre. Absolutely absurd. Especially a guy who, when you watch him play, he's a ground-bound plotter. If you watch him run up and down the court, forget what he does with the ball. If you just watch him run up and down the court, it brings back memories of Joe Klein and guys like that. He does not look like an NBA starting center. And then when he gets the ball, he turns into a freaking warlock. He creates the most ridiculous things. In doing a bit of research for this, and this really, really shocked me, but in doing a bit of research for this, he literally leads the league in, I was looking at my notes, in BPM, VORP, and PER. If that is not an advanced stats darling, I don't know what is. The advanced stats as well as the traditional ones, just love him.
He is a ridiculous story, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's like sometimes we think God, we're dumb. We don't know anything. If you would have told me 10 years ago, some second round pick out of Europe's just going to come into the league out of shape, just can't run up and down the floor. His best skill set is he's able to pass. And he's just kind of a nightmare on defense that can't really guard anybody. And he's going to turn into this.
Well, that's exactly it. If you look at him, he was doughy. He wasn't particularly athletic. He had a good basketball brain.
This is a win for fat guys everywhere.
Absolutely. This is why middle-aged men all over the world love Nikola Jokic. He gives us hope. But if you looked at him coming out of college, I mean, there was certainly talent there, but there was also a very, very big chance that he was going to be Luke Longley. He's going to be a big, solid guy who can take up space and facilitate from the elbow. but that's about it. In the end, he's turned into something that we've never seen before. Well, we have literally never seen a player like this. Like Denver's offense is, I think it's third in the league at the moment on offensive rating. But you look at what he's got around him. Jamal Murray is cratering this season. He has been absolutely awful. Paul Millsap is aging in dog years. He's still putting in reasonable performances, but he can't move like he used to. And between Gary Harris, Will Barton, and Michael Porter Jr., like, there might not be a more feast or famine trio in the entire league. Those three can go off for 70 points in a night, and they can also go for 12 points in a night between the three of them. And he is absolutely carrying that team. He's been incredible. And in carrying the team, he's having to play heavy minutes as well. And as you mentioned, Trey, he looks fitter than what he did when he came into the league, but he hasn't exactly turned himself into an Adonis.
Denver is a wild story to me. I don't think there's a team, and maybe this is because of Jokic, but I don't think there's a team built like them in the league, because there are times where their offense, like Murray's the screen guy. How many other point guards are like out there setting screens to set up the offense? So
well, I mean, look, we might see that pick and roll inverted if there were more playmaking centers like Jokic as well.
I guess that's true. That's true.
That's Michael Malone working with the unusual tools he has. Just on that, I love Michael Malone. I think he's such an underrated coach. Even back in Sacramento, he's the one guy that was able to get Boogie Cousins in All NBA form, and that was the year when he had a virus of some sort. I can't remember what it was. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It'll come to me after we finish recording.
The only thing I think of when I think of Boogie Cousins is the snakes in the grass.
No idea what you're talking about.
He had that tweet, "Snakes in the grass," to try to get his way out of there.
Yeah, no, I do remember that. No, look at Malone. Yeah, Malone. I think he's such an underrated coach. I really think he is a.
Can you build a championship team around Jokic? As he's the main guy.
Yeah, I think you could. If you get Murray back into bubble form, and look, let's say, for instance, in my trade piece that I did about a week ago, I mentioned that one of the, a lot of the teams that were looking at James Harden would look at Bradley Beal as the consolation prize, and Denver was one of those teams that threw their hat into the ring. I don't know how far it got.
Are we sure Bradley Beal's a consolation prize? Just because of the age. Because of the age.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But if you're looking to win in the next 2 or 3 years, Harden ahead of Beal. The other thing you got to remember is Beal came into the league at 19, has been playing big minutes as well. So we don't know when he will start to age. He might age prematurely, especially with all those injuries.
And Brooks ran him into the ground.
Yeah. So speaking of coaches that are awful, Scotty Brooks, God. But, if they package Harris and Porter Jr. and, whatever pick capital they need to for Bradley Beal, and you have Jamal Murray, Bradley Beal around Nikola Jokic, that is a championship core.
Are we sure anybody wants Gary Harris?
Well, look, if it means you get 3 first-round picks and Michael Porter Jr., you might take him, and especially on a team that would have a hole at shooting guard if they lose Beal. But to answer your question, I absolutely think you can build a team around Nikola Jokic. You need the right pieces to cover him defensively. He's not as bad as his reputation suggests, but he's still not great.
He's better than he was coming into the league on that end.
Oh God, yeah. He makes great reads. He's got super quick hands. Like if you're ever in a room with Nikola Jokic, watch your wallet. His hands are so quick. But
that's a line. Can we clip that line, Alex?
Yeah, go for it, man. That's what I'm here for, the punchy one-liners. Let's
set him up in a movie. He's going to be stealing wallets. I like it.
A 7-foot white guy just happens to walk in and no one notices him. But no, look, I absolutely think you can build around Jokic. You need to put particular players around him defensively, but he is an offense unto himself. He is that tide that can lift all the ships. You can definitely build around Jokic. He's well, as we can see from this discussion, he's an MVP candidate. And to me, he is a legitimate centerpiece of a championship team if Denver, or if he goes somewhere else, can build around him. But my number one is Joel Embiid.
My number one as well.
We've been waiting for this. This is the Embiid we've been waiting for a long time. He would have gone number one in that apparent super draft of Wiggins and Parker, which, geez, that turned out well, if it wasn't for all his injuries. But, he's 26 years old now, and, that's right at the start of his prime. He came into the game late. He's essentially, he missed half a year of college and essentially 2.5 years of NBA. So after coming to the game late, he missed 3 really important developmental years, just getting his body right. So he was always going to be behind the curve a little bit as far as the game intelligence, as far as game maturity to a degree as well. But that finally seems to have all caught up and coalesced this season. And I'm touching on the Coach of the Year award here, but
yeah, I was going to get into that.
Yeah, but credit to Doc Rivers for finding whatever combination of keys he had to punch to get Embiid to do what he's doing every night, and to not complain, and to not take nights off, and to get his body right. He's you look at his numbers: 29, 11, 3 assists. His blocks are down from what they were when he was younger, but he's not chasing blocks as much. He's holding his position a lot better now. So I think he's still at 1.3 or 1.4 blocks. Or
he's converting his threes too.
Oh yeah, he's what's he shooting? Something 55, 38, 86, 58, 35, 85, something like that on his shooting splits. He's
38.
He's played 20 games so far, and he's gone over 37 points on half a dozen occasions. He has become, and the extra spacing that having Steph Curry and all these other guys that they've added, that certainly helped him, because he might be the most unguardable single coverage guy in the paint in the league. In fact, not might, he is the most difficult guard. He's also the guy that is at the center of that defense, with all due credit to Ben Simmons, who is a brilliant Swiss Army knife of a defender. Defense starts at the rim, and he protects that rim like very few other people in the league. So he is literally the center of their offense and defense. And this is a team that is leading the Eastern Conference, is finally, after so many years of teasing what they can do, putting it all together.
Yeah, I don't know how else to put it, but I feel like this is almost the culmination of things. You bring in a new coach. Maybe he's a little bit more motivated. You bring in Daryl Morey, who unlocks a roster that is not the goofiest roster in NBA history, as I called it last year. Or is it Embiid is just more mature now? Is it all three? So, I don't know.
I think, and look, I've mentioned it so many times on this pod. I've mentioned it in stories. I've mentioned it to you one-on-one, speaking, offline, that I have a long history with Brett Brown. I've loved the bloke since the 90s when he coached my NBL team down here in Australia to a championship as a rookie coach. I think he's a fantastic coach, but he just couldn't get through to that team. Maybe it was that they still saw him as the kindergarten teacher rather than the disciplinarian high school teacher. And when he tried to get hard on him, he just couldn't. But for whatever reason, a new coach has come in, and it's a coach with, obviously championship credentials, and he has just whipped that team into shape. And particularly Embiid, he's found something in Joel Embiid that most of us knew was there, but kind of doubted it was ever going to come out.
I think the most important thing is the spacing. Al Horford, I don't care what anybody says, he was a problem in more ways than one. They couldn't play him when Embiid was out there. When you have elite shooters, like, I don't think we're talking about how good Seth Curry is. Like, Seth Curry's awesome, or at least is showing it right now.
I saw a tweet the other day. Everybody talked about the 50-40-90 club, and Seth Curry is going to create his own club the way he's going at the
He's
moment.
unbelievable.
A 50-90 club. Like he's actually shooting, like he's shooting over 50% from the field. He's shooting better than his field goal percentage from 3. It's something like 50.1 from the field and 50.3 from 3, which is, and it's not like he's taking an occasional shot. He's jacking them from everywhere. Like this, my God, he is such a good shot. Like,
Is that the best trade of the offseason?
I tell you what, it could well be. Yeah, especially considering, most people, and you and I, we both really lauded Dallas for that deal in our preseason pod. We thought that Josh Richardson, Seth Curry was obviously going to help the Sixers with his range and his gravity, but we thought Richardson was going to be the main piece of that deal. He was going to be that secondary playmaker that unlocked things for Dallas. He's been awful. And Seth Curry has been, white hot. He has been one of the main reasons, amongst a whole myriad of reasons, as you said, that Philly have gone from, good but frustrating to genuinely elite.
I can't get over it. I can't get over the Seth Curry thing. He's just unbelievable. I guess maybe we should have known because his last name was Curry, but he's really good.
Yeah, I remember sitting down with an old coach of mine. This is going back 25 years ago when Dell was playing, and I remember my coach said they need to get Del Curry open more. And he was sitting there saying to me, if you get this is probably Toronto era Del Curry, and he's saying you get Curry open, that's going to open up this and open up that, but it just wasn't the way the league was played in the 90s. It was inside out basketball, so it was essentially suck everyone into the key, then kick it out to your shooter.
Dump it down to Shaq.
Yeah, it was, and for the Raptors, it was dump it down to Antonio Davis or something. But you imagine Del Curry in this league. Like Del Curry in today's league is Seth Curry.
Crazy to think about. I do want to transition into Coach of the Year because I think it'll be a good segue. Since we're
I think so.
About Philadelphia.
Well, who did you have for Coach of the Year?
Well, my Coach of the Year is Doc Rivers because Philadelphia's #1 at the top of the East. Embiid's playing out of his mind. Does Doc Rivers get any credit for his daughter dating Seth Curry? Is that part of the equation?
That's a good point. I hadn't considered that, but you know what? There could be something there. It certainly would have helped getting him. It certainly would have helped, convincing him to come to Philly. But yeah, that's intriguing. That's an interesting thought. We need to do a deep dive on that. That's for another pod, but we need to do a deep dive on that.
Investigative reporting. I like it.
No, look, I think Doc's done an outstanding job. As we've mentioned, he has unlocked something in Embiid. Joel Embiid is doing the best impersonation of himself each and every night. Whereas in seasons past, it was 1 in 3, 1 in 4, where he'd just have these monster games where you go, holy hell, when he puts it together. Well, now he's put it together, and you can't help but credit Doc amongst some other things for that. But you think about Tobias Harris as well. He's back at his career best form, similar to what he did at the Clippers, where he was coached by Doc Rivers. He's brought the best out of Seth Curry. He's brought along all of these other young shooters, Shake Milton, Tyrese Maxey, all these guys. The only guy he hasn't quite unlocked yet is Simmons. And, I mean, this is hard for me to say as an Australian, but I'm not sure prime Phil Jackson could quite unlock Ben Simmons on this team. It's just such an unusual setup of a team for someone like Ben. It's perfect for Joel Embiid now, but it's not quite perfect for Simmons yet. But
either way...
I think Rivers has done a good job.
Either way, you're not going to get a perfect fit with Embiid and Simmons.
No, right? and that's what I mean.
One's always going to suffer anyway.
And this is what I mean. I think what GMs of the past have done is tried to create a team that fit both of them. Whereas whoever's making the decisions now, let's assume it's Morey, has said, well, we need to focus this team to one of them. And he's clearly chosen to focus it towards Embiid. And Simmons just has to make do as the secondary superstar. But Doc Rivers was my number 2.
Really?
Yeah. So I had
You're going to go
Quinn Snyder
Homer
as my
alert on
third.
me.
No, he was my 3rd. He was number
Okay.
3 for me, Quinn. Look, coaching the best team in the league, and well, I won't say best team. I'll say best record in the league. The Lakers are probably the best team in the league. But look, who out of Salt Lake would have picked the Jazz to be top 4 in the West, let alone record in the league? No, I wouldn't have. I definitely didn't. I was actually a little bit down on the team. But yeah, look, I think he's done a magnificent job. He's combined that usual whirring, passing and cutting offense with an absolute barrage of threes. That offense always opened up good shots, but now that he's, prioritizing the 3 a lot more rather than curl cuts or layups and things like that, the team's scoring so much more. He's found a way to gel Conley and Gobert properly. In shooting the threes, he's opened up everything for Gobert, who just has insane amounts of space. Utah's bench, which has traditionally been a liability, even more than their offense when they were a purely defensive side, it was their bench that always hamstrung them. He's turned that bench, and he's turned Joe Ingles, and I'll get more to Joe Ingles on later, but he's turned Joe Ingles, who was traditionally a brilliant starter and a really below average bench player, into a brilliant bench player. And he's done it by putting the right players around him, putting the right structure around him to make the best of him. That's good coaching. So for me, he's number 3. But my number 1.
Can I jump in on Utah real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
One, I thought I was just waiting for you to bring up Derek Favors. Like, where was the Derek Favors stuff out of you? I feel like every pod he finds his way in somehow. Just Derek Favors.
I love that,
I was waiting for the praise. Second thing is, how the hell is Mike Conley this good again? I didn't think we were ever going to see that guy. And how the hell is Jordan Clarkson not only good but efficient?
This is the structure that he's like. Not so much Conley. I mean, Conley was always going to find a way to adapt. I just wasn't sure he would find a way to adapt this well. And the 3-point shooting of the entire team has opened up his space to work with Gobert. Because remember, he's played with a pick and pop center, an all-star pick and pop center for a decade. So to go to a guy whose range is, me to my computer screen away, that was a really big adjustment for Conley. So, he's having to basically play a vertical game in the pick and roll rather than a horizontal game. And that took a long time to adjust, especially in a season that was as disrupted as the 2020 season. Having essentially 3 preseasons when you think about it, because of the mini preseason before the bubble, that's given those 2 time to gel. But a lot of that comes down to the spacing that this new offense that Snyder's implemented. It's certainly helped him. With Clarkson, can we hold off on him?
Okay.
Because I want to talk about him later.
Okay.
But my number 1 coach, and like I said, this might be a touch controversial, is Nate Bjorkgren from Indiana.
Wow. Okay.
Dude, your eyebrows just about hit the damn roof then.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't think you'd expect this one. No, Indiana intrigued me coming into the season. Bjorkgren was this apparent, and look, not many people knew about him. The real deep dive NBA, the guys who know the kids of the assistant coaches knew about Bjorkgren. But he was this apparent offensive genius, and he's coming into a side that had a really limited ceiling, but a really high floor because of what Nate McMillan, who I'll now refer to as Nate Mark 1, what he was able to implement. So I was really interested to see what Nate Mark 2 could do with this team, whether he could unlock something in their offense. So not only has he completely unlocked that offense, a lot of people, and I'm proud to say I wasn't one of them, but a lot of people laughed at Domantas Sabonis being an all-star. He's going to be an all-star again. And a lot of it is because Bjorkgren has centered that offense around him. He's turned Malcolm Brogdon again into a borderline all-star. He's going to be closer than what he was last season. He's managed to solve the whole Sabonis-Turner conundrum. And in turning Sabonis into an offensive all-star and an adequate defensive player, he's turning, and again, not wanting to spoil something for later, but he's turning Turner into a defensive player of the year candidate and a person who is a really good cog in the offense. But the big thing, he's done it all without, the bubble god TJ Warren. And since they've traded Oladipo, he's done it without a shooting guard. So he's essentially done it with, 40% of his starting five missing. And one of his keys off the bench in Jeremy Lamb only coming back recently after 12 months out. So he hasn't even been playing with a full deck yet. And he's got that team absolutely humming. Once they get everyone back on the floor, they are going to be dead set dangerous.
So you're buying the Pacers cheese right now. You're buying it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I am drinking a Kool-Aid. I'm not going to sit there and say they are up there with Philly and Milwaukee. But man, they are a really, really good side. Like, they are the sort of side that if they make a conference finals, assuming they're
conference finals,
dead set, I would not be shocked. I wouldn't tip it, but if they, I wouldn't put it past them to get an upset and reach a conference finals. I think Indiana are that good.
Wow.
Once they get everyone back, they're this good now, missing two of their best five.
To me, they feel a bit Toronto-y. That's probably not a word. They just feel very, very Toronto-ish, where they're not quite good
Kawhi
enough. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah,
they're not real contenders to me.
yeah,
Like
but that's actually a really good analogy, though. I'm not tipping them for a championship. If things absolutely break their way, they might sneak into a finals. But remember, that's how.
Come on.
No. But you think about it. You think if there's a bad injury or the right team get knocked out another team, that's pretty much how Miami made it in the last finals.
Okay.
So, it happens. Sometimes these breaks happen.
Miami. Speaking of Miami.
All things. Oh yeah, no, they're really struggling. Now, all things being equal, Indiana are probably fourth, maybe third in the conference. But that's enough to get you close to where, if you get the right breaks at the right times, that you can reach a conference finals and maybe a finals. You just need to put your hat in the ring. And that's what Indiana are doing. And they've got room to grow as they get used to this offensive system, as they integrate LeVert, as they get Warren back. So that's the thing that I love about Bjorkgren's coaching effort so far. He's done this really, really hamstrung.
I didn't expect that answer. I did not expect that answer. If you polled like 10 random people on who that guy is, I don't think anybody would know.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that if you just put a headshot on the screen, people would go, I don't know, does he sell insurance? What is he? A lot of people wouldn't know. Where did you want to go next?
Yeah, let's do the sixth man of the year stuff. Then we'll take a quick break and then we'll finish up the rest of the show. Because I think you're alluding to who your pick is for sixth man of the year.
Oh yeah. This is where we get the homer alert coming in. So I put Ingles as my third choice.
Oh boy.
No, look, he has been a really brilliant influence on that second unit, and he is the guy that has allowed that second unit to flourish. He's still an elite shooter. His game is still it's still the most middle-aged man game in the NBA ever, quite possibly since at least the 1950s. It is the most 1950s game that he plays. It is magnificent to watch. But look, he's the reason that bench works, because he can facilitate. He can shoot. He can play off the ball, which is how he came into the league. He still plays really heady, smart, handsy defense. But the thing is, he's 33 now. He can't start. He's not the sort of guy who can go 35 minutes a game. So this season, he's playing about 27, 28. His per 36s are all career highs. So his efficiency has actually gone up, and his value per minute has gone up as the leader of the bench unit. He is, and again, the Utah front office has structured that bench really well. This is where I mentioned Derek Favors to fulfill my contractual obligation to mention Derek Favors. But Ingles' favorite pick and roll partner has always been Derek Favors. I still maintain that part of the reason he struggled so much last season is because Favours wasn't there. He just doesn't work quite as well with Gobert, and he sure as hell didn't work well with Tony bloody Bradley. But having Favours back, and again, Favours is playing beautifully in diminished minutes as well, where he's not destroying what's left of his body. But Ingles has got his best pick and roll partner out there, and he's got an elite scorer with him. Somebody who can take the pressure off Ingles having to do everything, because that's not Ingles' game. He's a facilitator who can shoot rather than being an out-and-out scorer. Now, my number 2 was the water boy, Chris Boucher.
I like it. He was actually on my short list. I thought he was awesome at Oregon. I don't know how he didn't get drafted. I know he had injury problems, but how did that guy just not get picked?
Yeah, I mean, look, 2020 hindsight, it's obviously a ridiculous decision, and the injuries had to play a part in it. But I'd need to go and research, go back on your draft nets and read all of the reports, and there must be something that was missed by not just NBA people, but by the general public, because it wasn't like there was a huge outcry in oh my God, where's Chris Boucher? He should be the 30th pick, the 35th pick, and he hasn't even been touched. And not only not touched, he spent the next 5 or 6 years playing G League. And it just wasn't this outcry. If we look at someone like, say, Christian Wood. Now, when his draft came, I actually picked Christian Wood as a late first-round pick, and it was a genuine, oh my God, what the hell's happened here when Christian Wood didn't get drafted? There was none of that for Boucher. So there must have been something that everybody missed, the general public as well as the NBA people. But he's been brilliant. Do you remember Keon Clark, another Raptors big?
Keon Clark. No, the name is not coming to my head.
Okay.
Is that like Vince Carter Day Raptors?
Yeah, around that era. But he reminds me of a not quite as bulky, but slightly springier Keon Clark. The one thing that Keon Clark given, he was a big of his era, couldn't do a shoot threes the way Boucher can, but similar type of players. Both of them were like absolute permanent darlings. They were both bench players who thrived as sixth men, seventh men. You look at his per 36s, and I wrote these down because they jumped off the page at me. 21.6 points, 10.7 boards, 3.1 blocks, and 2.5 threes at 43% per 36 minutes. But that's all-star numbers. That is out-and-out all-star numbers. And the reason I bring those up, his per 36s, is because off the bench, he is completely outplaying Aaron Baines. Baines, I hate to say it because Bangers has been a good player for a long time, but Aaron Baines looks dead set cooked. And to me, the one reason that Boucher really probably won't be in a six-man conversation at the end of the year is I think he will end up starting games. I think he'll take that starting spot, and he will start, too many games to be considered for this award. And if he can get up to, say, 32, 33 minutes a game and keep that sort of production going, he's a borderline all-star.
Yeah, he's been awesome. The craziest part is, and I know they do miss Ibaka, but is there a chance that Boucher can turn into a more athletic version of Ibaka? Maybe not now, but because he's still fairly young, right?
He's
3 years,
28 years old.
Is he that old?
He spent a long time in the G League. Oh yeah, he spent quite a few years in the G League.
I didn't think he was that old. Never mind. I thought he was like 24-ish.
He's another one like Siakam, who you think is a lot. You think he's younger than what he is, but they started in the NBA a bit later. But no, my number one, and we touched on this one, and I think you know where I'm going. It's Jordan Clarkson, and now
Homer
I don't
alert.
mind. I don't mind if someone says that Boucher's the number one, but the two reasons I put Clarkson first on my sort of intermediate
he's been
mid-season
awesome.
ballot. Oh, he's been magnificent. But part of it is, like I said, I think Boucher will end up starting ahead of Baines in the near future. And the other reason is that this award usually goes to the best scorers. And Clarkson is the leading scorer off the bench in the league. So, he's basically become Lou Williams. He's become
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, he's basically become the new version of Sweet Lou.
But he's bigger than Lou Williams too.
Oh yeah, he is. And he's probably a little bit quicker than even prime Lou Williams, frankly. But a lot of his success does come down to that structure of that bench. Clarkson has always been someone who has struggled. He's been that sort of combo guard, like a Monte Ellis type, who has been a scorer at heart and has struggled when he's had to facilitate. But with Ingles there, Ingles can facilitate for him. Favors can cover him on defense. He's just allowed to basically run plays for himself, or get off the ball, run around screens, and get hit. And that's perfect for him. Now, I don't want to, downplay his own maturity. His shot selection since he's come to Utah, whether that's just the natural maturity of, oh, crap, I've been traded again, I need to pull my head in, or whether it's the coaching that's there, or whether it's the leaders.
Playing for Cleveland?
His shot selection in those places was awful. But you think about his upbringing in the NBA, he came into the Lakers in the worst period, certainly in Los Angeles Lakers history. I still think a lot of the issues with guys like D'Angelo Russell come from the fact that he was in that really horrible environment of that mid-2010s Lakers. And Clarkson's another one who I think suffers from it. But something has changed in his mindset where he all of a sudden takes the right shots. He doesn't force stuff. There's not, two dribbles with a defender on his hip into a pull-up 18-footer like he used to in Cleveland and LA. He is taking really, really good shots, and his talent is finally shining through as a result.
I can't believe it. I never thought this was going to happen for him. I really did.
Neither did I.
They basically stole him. They didn't give up really anything to get him.
Oh, mate, we gave up, 2 second-round picks and Dante Exum 2 to 4 weeks.
Crazy.
Yeah, no, and that is Dante Exum's full name now. Dante Exum 2 to 4 weeks. He's always 2 to 4 weeks out. And it's little Australian basketball story. Obviously Dante, born in Australia, American father. His dad, Cecil Exum, was a teammate of Michael Jordan's on that North Carolina championship team. And he played over here in our National League for years. And he wore knee braces that would have weighed as much as me. Cecil Exum's knees were they must have been made of biscuits. These knee braces went from knee to underneath his shorts. And this is back in the 80s and 90s when I had short shorts. They went all the way up. And these things were a good, half an inch thick. They had big metal contraptions all over them. And poor Cecil, he was a really good basketballer, but he moved like a cruise liner. And it's all because he had really, really bad knees. And I hate to say it, but Dante's a bit of a chip off the old block. He just can't stay healthy, the poor kid.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here to go to one of our sponsors. Of course, we have Jarrod Prosser joining the show. We're going to be doing more NBA stuff and more NHL stuff now that football is over. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. In case you hadn't heard, your favorite Renegade Sports Media Group has its own Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Vendetta Sports Media to support our efforts to continuously bring you sports, gaming, and other media coverage as only we can. We've got 4 different membership tiers. For $3 a month, we'll give you a simple thank you on our Patreon site. For $6 a month, you get a thank you, and you get to become a recruit in Jackson Law's Vendetta University Gaming Series. For $10 a month, you get everything from the previous tiers, a special thank you at the end of our videos, free access to our upcoming Discord chat, and a free koozie after 4 months. And then the big dog, $50 a month, gets you everything from the previous tiers, as well as opportunities for Fantasy League invites, stream gaming, possible invites to mock NFL and NBA draft sessions, a once-a-month Google Hangout, and after 4 months, a free t-shirt. Yeah! Go to patreon.com/Vendetta Sports Media and help us to improve our pledge to bring you the best sports, gaming, and other media coverage.
All right, we're back now. Of course, we're joined by Jarrod Prosser. Make sure to follow him on Twitter. He's always a funny guy to follow. Hey_it's_JP, I think.
So yeah, it is. As you know, Trey, I often change it, but I quite like you sort of fumbling over the really awkward readout of that name. So I might leave it as that handle for a while.
Okay. Make sure to follow Jarrod on Twitter, of course. Like the video, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. All day, AJ27, Twitter. Make sure to follow our producer, myself, Trey Dalbert. Okay. So I have a little bit, it's not a big bone, but it's a little bit of a bone to pick with you because we're going to jump into most improved player. And one of the themes on some old shows has been this conversation of Pascal Siakam versus Jaylen Brown. So I want to throw it to you now because can we just stop with this debate? It's over, right? Like it's done. It's done with.
After this season, well, so far this season anyway, if this is Brown's new level, it's definitely over. Siakam still isn't at his best, but even Siakam's best isn't as good as Brown's playing this season.
So he's my pick for most improved player. I guess I'm going to go
Likewise.
Homer Celtics. I'll throw the rest of the guys out of there.
Look, I picked him as well. Apologies to Christian Wood, who a lot of people would pick.
Yeah.
But the reason that I wouldn't pick him is that he did essentially what he's doing now in Detroit last season. He just did it in a minute sample size. It was basically 5 or 6 weeks of this electric basketball. And he's basically, there was a chance that he wasn't going to do that again, but he has. So it's not most improved. It's just a continuation of what he did for a short period. So to me, it's great that he's doing it over a longer period, but it's not most improved. The only other 2 guys that came into it for me were, funnily enough, Jeremy Grant, his replacement.
How about it? Can we take like 2 minutes on him?
We can take a long time on him. I got a lot on him.
What the hell happened? I remember before the year we sat there and said, why the hell would he go to Detroit? And I know part of it is, hey, you want to be the number 1 guy, but he actually like is proving that. And I know it's the Pistons and he's not a real number 1, but God, he's playing well.
Look, when I did this, I went back and looked at our preseason pod, just that specific section. And, you know, I thought he was going to Detroit for the money, and you corrected me and said, no, Denver offered him the same. And my reaction was, well, he must be insane. Turns out he's not. You know, good on him for backing himself.
Well, Jarrod, we don't know if
guy.
we can use the word insane anymore.
Inside joke there, people. Now, look, Grant, you know, my God, you know, good on him for backing himself in and saying, I am good enough to be the number 1 guy. I'm not doing this for more money. I'm doing this for more opportunity. You know, the one thing is, you got to sit there and laugh at Detroit, who, yes, they've gotten a really good player in Jeremy Grant for a really good contract, but he's essentially doing what Christian Wood was doing. And Wood's doing it on less money in Houston. If they just kept Wood, you know, imagine if they kept Wood instead of Mason Plumlee. If they had Wood and Jeremy Grant right now, with Sekou Doumbouya, you know, developing as a 3, or Sadiq Bey jacking 3s off the wings, suddenly you'd have this young team, and you're sitting there going, this team might actually have something. But
You mean you're not a proponent of Blake Griffin anymore?
I'm so sad for Blake Griffin. I'm like, he was a great player, but he's just a shell of himself. It's really depressing to see. Because the guy's only, I think he's still only 31, 32 years old. He's not ancient. He should be
like
at the tail end of his prime.
He looks ancient.
He plays ancient. But I mean, he honestly looks. He looks like a 38-year-old man running around or hobbling around out there.
He looks worse than Millsap.
Oh, he really does. And it's tragic because, I mean, this is a guy who jumped over a freaking car. Like,
Park the car.
if you go back and YouTube Blake Griffin dunk highlights, it's the sort of stuff that it literally makes you giggle as you watch it. Like, it's just stupendous stuff. And like I said, he should still be in his prime, tail end for sure, but he should still be an all-star. But the bottom half of his body is just calcified before our eyes. It's horrible to watch. And I don't say this to denigrate the man. I genuinely feel sorry for him. I really do, because he doesn't deserve to have this sort of tail to his career.
Can we go back to Jaylen Brown for 30 seconds? We didn't give him enough love.
You want to go for more than 30 seconds, Track.
How good is Jaylen Brown, though? Because, yes,
Wow.
I think he's the most improved player, but, like, how good is he? Because he's always been a sort of nightmare on the defensive end. His shot has gotten so much better from his rookie year, and he is so aggressive now. He doesn't sit back and just wait for things to happen anymore.
Oh, he's a legitimate All-NBA caliber player. Like he might be the longest of long shots at MVP, but he's the sort of guy that if you jumped on a betting site now, you would actually find his MVP odds. Whereas even last season, they wouldn't have even bothered putting odds on for him. And that in itself is a testament to how much he's improved. Last season, was he in the Celtics' top 3 players?
See, I've always thought that him and Jason Tatum were closer than people thought, but we just haven't seen it yet. Now we're finally seeing it. This is why when you did those Siakam and Jaylen Brown comparisons, I would always get so upset because I know that guy is in him.
Well, this is the thing. I always thought he would be a really good complementary offensive player, but there was a time where, and a time in very recent history where Brown might have been the team's 4th or 5th best player, depending on his form and the form of others around him, depending on Kemba's knee and all this sort of stuff. But I would argue, and I think I've got a pretty strong argument in saying this, that he's the Celtics' best player. He might not be their best offensive player. Yeah, I wouldn't say he's their best offensive player, but he's only a hair behind Tatum, and he's as good as Tatum is on defense. Brown's elite on defense. To me, he's one of the best two-way players in the NBA on his form this season.
Yeah, just too bad we had to watch Gordo walk out the door for nothing, and Kemba's knees just deteriorate into dust. Just always find ways to break my heart, even when things are going well.
You've got a $28 million trade exception that Danny Ainge will almost use.
It'll go to some bullshit like JJ Redick.
Oh, look, just imagine if you managed to swing the sign and trade for Miles Turner.
Instead of Tristan Thompson.
Yep. This is the moment where we watch Trey cry.
That's how I feel.
Oh man, that Celtics team with this version, and look, Brad Stevens is a brilliant coach. I don't doubt that he could do the same things that Bjorkgren has done with Miles Turner. He could turn him into an elite defensive player and an outside shooter. Yeah, he's basically put him in a combination of the Tice/Thompson role.
I'm getting
depressed. And how Celtics be. How good?
I'm getting depressed.
But no, I will eat my humble pie on the Siakam Brown race.
Okay.
I did not think Brown had this much offensive improvement in him. I really didn't. He has been magnificent this season.
Okay, that's all I wanted.
Right, that's the end of the pod. We'll see you next week on That's Some Cheese. Now, Jeremy Grant was my number 2 for most improvement. My third, speaking of guys that I didn't think had it in them, Julius Randle. He's always had talent, but I didn't think he had it in him to put all of the pieces in the right places to make it all work. And those spin moves that he used to do, he'd drive right and then spin back onto his left hand. As soon as you saw him drive right and reverse pivot, you knew he was going to his left, and you knew it was going to be an absolutely comical turnover. Now he's creating space for little pocket passes and Mitchell Robinson dunking everything because, for whatever reason, Randall's figured it out.
I can't get myself to watch the Knicks. I can't do it.
I wanted to jump in here as a Knicks fan.
Yeah, do it.
So and you mentioned Mitchell Robinson. I actually thought coming into this season, and I was retweeting stuff, liking stuff. All my family here is all big on Mitchell Robinson, and I thought that we were going to be able at this point in the season, and hopefully at the end, put Mitchell Robinson in this category. But unfortunately, I just don't think he's that guy. I mean, of the fact that, and this is a terrible comparison, but you're looking at in the center position, you're looking at Joel Embiid and the numbers he's able to put up. Why is it that Mitchell Robinson is walking away some days with 6 and 7 points? I mean, you talk about if Julius Randle's able to hit him off the spin move or RJ's able to hit him off a pick and roll. I just don't understand why that big man is not developing in this season like a lot of us thought he was going to.
Is Mitchell Robinson just a DeAndre Jordan, though?
There it is. That's exactly the comparison I was going to make.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 reasons he doesn't get as many points. Part of it is, 3 reasons actually. Part of it is that there's just not great point guard play. With all due respect to Elfrid Payton, there's just not great point guard play. RJ Barrett is getting better, but he's still not making those elite reads. And ultimately, he's Mitchell Robinson he reminds me a lot of DeAndre Jordan. And even a 25-year-old DeAndre Jordan would not get a sniff of All-NBA in today's NBA. But he got that first All-NBA nod in probably the weakest period for centers in the entire history of the NBA. And he had a brilliant year, and Blake Griffin helped. Chris Paul elevated his game to incredible levels. But he's not a skillful guy. He's like DeAndre Jordan at his peak was brilliant at what he did, which is get rebounds and roll to the rim and throw it down. And that is essentially what Mitchell Robinson will become. He will get rebounds. He will learn eventually to not chase every block and give up the offensive rebound. And once he does that, he'll be an elite rebounder himself. But his offense is purely roll to the rim, catch it and dunk it. And he needs an elite setup guy for that. Randle, as good as he is, and as surprising as these assist numbers are, he's not an elite setup guy. So, you're comparing DeAndre to Mitchell Robinson, but you're also, in doing that, comparing Chris Paul to Julius Randle / RJ Barrett / Elfrid Payton. And this is prime Chris Paul, 28, 29-year-old Chris Paul. That's not fair on Mitchell Robinson to say he's not developing because he just doesn't. Oh, hello. What's your name?
This is Maximiliano. We have Jamie in the room who creates all the shirts. If Jamie wants to say hello. That's the shirt designer.
He's in the very room. Yeah. I was going to say he's in the very room where the magic happens.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, their Kentucky guy, quickly, he's not bad.
That's what I was just going to go. I wanted to, before we move on, I want to stick right here for just one moment because as you saw Derrick Rose moving over back to the Knicks, returning, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on that because I don't know. I have mixed reactions on it because simply as a standpoint, I'm starting to accept it a little bit more simply because this is more of a, veteran type locker room guy who can help those 2 first-round picks, Emmanuel Quickley and Obi Toppin. He can help them develop. And with Quickley right now, how he's running most of those plays, taking those clutch threes that are needed in situations when they played against the Heat and they lost in a tough 2-point game, which a lot of guys didn't think that they would even be contenders against the Heat. And so to have Derrick Rose there to kind of lead these younger guys is, I think, the only reason that is making me almost like it. And when he was here back, a couple years ago when he was there, I didn't like it because I didn't have younger guys. There was not an Obi Toppin, there was not an Emmanuel Quickley, guys that we could develop. And I'm sure he can help RJ, but more of a standpoint of Emmanuel Quickley, I think Derrick Rose can be crucial to his development.
Yeah,
Look at Jared's face.
I'm really torn on this trade. Like on the surface, it smacks of Tibbs being Tibbs. And just while we're on Julius Randle, his stats are a little bit inflated because he leads the league in minutes because Tibbs is going to Tibbs. But this does smack of Thibodeau doing his usual thing of getting his old band back together. And it depends, the success of the trade for me will depend on how they use him. If they're going to use Derrick Rose and cut out Emmanuel Quickly's minutes and push for the 8th spot in the playoffs and get playoff basketball back to Madison Square Garden.
That was an American accent.
Hey, thank you. No, but I mean, if the idea is to get the 8th seed, then acquiring a 32-year-old with 37-year-old knees, Derrick Rose, yeah, they got him cheap and they got rid of Dennis Smith Jr., who was like dead weight. But ultimately, if it's going to impact Emmanuel Quickly, is it worth it? To get the 8th seed? Probably not. If they're going to start to cut into maybe Elfrid Payton's minutes a bit more and keep Quickly as that gun scoring point guard off the bench, then that's probably all right. If they're going to use Rose in a limited minutes capacity and use him to mentor, as Alex was suggesting, that's probably all right too. But I can't imagine that they would get in Derrick Rose to be a 15 minutes per game player and mentor. To me, he's still going to play 25 to 28 minutes a game as the lead bench scorer. And that can only mean that he takes minutes away from Quickly, and that concerns me.
All right, we're at the hour mark. I was actually concerned that we would be not have enough time just doing all these awards, but Jarrod's on the show, so we're gonna go for 7 hours and 12 minutes, I guess. So let's go on to the next one. Rookie of the Year, Jarrod.
Oh man, it's a racing too, isn't it? I'll just read out who I've got for 3rd place here on my Rookie of the Year.
Okay.
I've got the word crapshoot written down.
Oh.
Like, this could be Williams, it could be Bain, it could be Tillman, it could be Quickly, it could be Jayshawn Tate, it could be Pritchard, it could be Maxey.
Well, if Pritchard's not one, the list is wrong.
Oh, I should have seen that one coming. No, but like 3rd place, I mean, it's so wide open. Yeah, you could even throw Wiseman in there on his early season form as a potential 3rd place. But really, this comes down to LaMelo Ball and Tyrese Halliburton. In my preseason picks, I picked Halliburton simply because I thought he would be more ready. And he is my number 2 in this one. He started the season strong, really good, consistent, and he hasn't really let up. 12 points, 6 assists, 4 boards a game, give or take a steal and a half, 45% from deep on really good number of attempts.
I can't believe he's good.
No, I loved him coming into this draft.
I'm dead wrong. I thought his jump shot looked goofy, and the fact that Sacramento picked him.
Yeah, that's often the death knell, isn't it? How many good players, highly rated players, go to Sacramento and die?
That was my thing.
It's just wither before our eyes. But yeah, he still isn't starting, and like the official reason for that is they like him off the bench because he already plays like a veteran, and he solidifies that second unit. And to his credit and to the Kings' credit, he does do that. But I still suspect that a part of the reason he's not starting, because to me he is already the Kings' 2nd best player. But I think part of the reason he's not starting is because Buddy Hield's just a great big sook who won't handle coming off the bench well. Like, he'll just crack it and not play well, not try on defense and hijack the offense. So I'd like to see Halliburton start and play more minutes alongside Fox, because I think Fox is more of a scoring point guard, and Halliburton, as well as he can score, he's a more traditional point guard.
Why can't you just play Buddy at the 3?
Well, you could play some 3-guard lineups. I mean, Buddy can essentially be an undersized 3-and-D wing. Not that he plays great D, but he can stretch the floor on offense. You bleed points on defense, but if you're playing Marvin Bagley and Harrison Barnes at the 4 and 5, you're going to bleed points anyway. So may as well make it fun. But yeah, it's got to be LaMelo Ball, hasn't it? He has to be Rookie of the Year at this stage.
He just looks like a 16-year-old TikToker. I can't get behind it.
I'm not on TikTok, but
me neither.
No, but my 12-year-old is, and he often shows me these videos that I have to fake laugh at. And you're dead right. He looks like one of these kids that, like, James will come up and say, "Oh, do you know?" And he'll give me some screen name like, "Yeah." I've got no idea, mate. But no, obviously he played in Australia last year, so I got to watch a fair bit of him. And given the hype that came with being a potential number one pick playing in the NBL and also having the Ball surname, he was really heavily scrutinised down here. And there were, he missed half the season injured, but there were some flashes where you just thought, this kid, he's got genius level IQ, but they were just flashes. And in the preseason piece, I picked Halliburton because I thought he would be ready. I thought Ball was 2 or 3 years away from being what he is now, and maybe 5 years away from being a star. But God, there's absolutely no way that I thought he would be doing this a couple of months into his NBA career. Every night he's coming up with a highlight play. And it's not just a pass. It might be a tough rebound in traffic or a read on a steal or even just a little pocket pass, which looks simple, but the angle of it is really, really difficult. And he makes space for that pass. He's been absolutely magnificent. And we talked about, I spoke about Halliburton probably being the Kings' best player. Has LaMelo already gone past Rozier and Devontae Graham as the second best player on the team?
So the number one player on the team is lights out Gordon Hayward, who can't miss. Unbelievable.
This season, no, he can't.
Unbelievable.
It's amazing. All he needed is 2 legs.
And people, that's the worst part about Hayward. I was mad when he left, and people were kept trying to tell me it's fine. They don't need him. Like the Celtics are better without him, and he goes to Charlotte and he can't miss. Like, just everything just breaks my heart, man.
But he wouldn't be this player in Boston.
But are we sure?
He's the number one option
without
in
Kemba. Without Kemba taking a big role.
At best, he's going to be a third option. Once Kemba's healthy, he'll be a fourth option.
But I think he looks like crisper too.
He does. He's healthy.
Yeah.
For the first time in years, he's healthy. This is the first time since Utah, realistically, and outside of that, 4.5 minutes in Boston, where he's been healthy. And it's a literal 4.5 minutes he was healthy in Boston. But this is the first time that he has had his legs under him. And he has gone back to being a number one option, which he was in Utah. Even healthy, he was going to be at best the third option, and with a healthy Kemba, a fourth option. Hate to say it, mate, but he was still going to be a 14-point player at best in Boston. He just wouldn't get the touches. He'd be a distributor.
But that's what you need to win a championship.
You do. You'd rather have more options than less. But I don't think...
Kemba might be a 7th option right now.
No, if Kemba gets his knee right, he'll be fine. It's just, I do worry about that knee. But look, for $30 million a year, do you really want to have a guy who, you're worrying every time?
The contract will age bad.
14 points.
The contract will age bad. I'm just upset with the way it happened.
It's looking fine this season, but in the 3rd and 4th years of that contract, they're not going to go well. But yes, back to Rookie of the Year. Look, if people want to pick Halliburton ahead of Ball, I've got no problem with it. For me, it's Ball by a hair to Halliburton and then Akers to the rest.
The TikTokers win again. All right. Last one here. Defensive Player of the Year. And I feel like this is going to be Homer alert again. We're just going to go right back to the roots of the French. I don't know what to call him. What's his nickname?
Look, Rudy Gobert has all these nicknames and they all suck. They're just Stifle Tower and the French Republic.
No, that doesn't work.
They're terrible nicknames. The worst one is the Gobinator. I don't even know what that is supposed to be.
It sounds like the goober stuff that you get out of a jar.
If I gave you a pen and paper and said, draw a Gobinator, what would you draw?
I was thinking about like the peanut butter and jelly goober stuff that you get out of a jar. It's like some kind of robot.
Yeah, and that's supposed to be your scary big 7'1" defensive monster. Peanut butter. It's like, the name just doesn't lend itself to nicknames. Thankfully, he doesn't have to worry about nicknames because he's a hell of a basketball player. Now, for me, We mentioned Miles Turner earlier, and he's the third place guy for me. Leading the league in blocks, 3.5 a game. The only guys in the last 20 years who have had the amount of blocks that he has per game. Marcus Camby, who was a brilliant defensive player, but then you're looking at Theo Ratliff and Hassan Whiteside, who are not getting within a mile of a defensive player of the year shout. So, he has anchored that defense wonderfully well. For all of the talent Sabonis has, he couldn't jump over a folded piece of paper. He's an elite rebounder, but he's not protecting the rim. So Turner's ability to, and look, credit to Sabonis for being able to step out and use his smarts and his agility to be able to stay with some players on the exterior. But Turner inside, he's a menace. He's just a brilliant shot blocker. But to me, it's Gobert and Davis and Gobert. I'm much like the Rookie of the Year. I'm not fussed which order they're in. I'll put Gobert first, simply because I don't think he's got the defensive supporting cast around him that Davis has. The Lakers are the best defense in the league. Utah's number 3. Davis has got LeBron. He's got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He's got good defense. He's got Marc Gasol directing traffic for 20 to 25 minutes a game. And Gasol is he's a dead set genius defender. Even at his age and the fact that he can't move anymore, he still sees stuff before it happens. You watch a Lakers game, you watch the first quarter, Gasol's calling out stuff before it evolves. He's still a genius. He just can't move anymore. But the reason I put Gobert ahead of Davis is simply because all of those defensive stalwarts that the Lakers have, Utah's starting a pair of 6'1" guards, a 6'4" stopper at the wing, and Bogdanovic, who has traditionally been a liability. And coming off the bench, their main guys off the bench. Favors backs up Gobert. They very rarely play together these days. Jordan Clarkson is still woeful defensively for all his offensive talent, and Ingles is he's a very smart defensive player, but he's older and slower. So Gobert doesn't have the supporting cast around him, and that elevates him above Davis for me. But I'm happy to hear arguments.
I don't have an argument. I just continue to get frustrated that there needs to be a little guy defensive player of the year award. That's all I want. Just give me 2.
Smart corner of the pod, yeah.
Well, I don't think he's been brilliant compared to what he was a year ago because he's missed some games. But
agree.
I just wish there was a little man award for this. That's all I want.
Look, I get what you're saying because it's much like when I mentioned the 6th Man of the Year award. It traditionally goes to a guard that scores a heap of points, or in the Montrezl Harrell case, a big that scores a heap of points. It's generally an offensive award. Defensive Player of the Year, because they don't have the same metrics to measure it, the advanced stats they do for offense, people tend to look at rebounds and blocks and maybe team defensive rating. So it tends to go to big guys. And there'll be something that will come up that will change that. I'm sure of it. But I'm not smart enough. I'm not a John Hollinger type. I'm not a Nate.
Sure you are.
Oh God, no. I can't come up with those sort of algorithms to analyze this sort of stuff. Oh hell no. No, even if I could, mate, I don't think I'd have the inclination, to be frank with you. But there's much smarter people out there than me who can work on that sort of stuff. But at the moment, it is a big man's award, much like the 6th Man of the Year award is a scorer's award. So it's always going to go to a big. And that's a shame because it does count out people like Marcus Smart. It even to a degree counts out your Kawhi Leonard and Paul George types, really. As much as Kawhi has won one before. Those guys are both elite defenders. Jaylen Brown, it counts out someone like him. And that's a shame. But as it is, I'd still put Gobert as the guy for the moment.
Enes Kanter.
Just missed out. Missed out. 4th place.
He must be 4th. Yeah.
Oh man, no, I'm fairly sure I could score in a post on Enes Kanter. I mean, look, he'd score a gazillion points on me, but I reckon I could get a bucket or 2 on him.
All right, I think we covered it, Jarrod. Do we have anything else to go over?
Oh, look, good. It's probably we can go over I guess more general business next time we're on a pod.
Yeah, Yeah, I'll have you on again. It's football season's over, so we can dive into more NBA stuff whenever.
So did Jeff Garcia make the Super Bowl?
No, he just missed out.
Again?
NFC title game. All right.
Limited my football knowledge. It stopped at about 2005.
That's our guy, Jarrod Prosser. Of course, make sure to follow him on Twitter. Hey_, a couple more things. And it's _JP. Follow him on Twitter. Myself, Trey Daubert, all day. JK Dobbins in the producer booth. Let me shout out the where you can find the show on social media. It is That's Some Cheese minus the E for Twitter. And then _, That's Some Cheese for the Instagram to get the highlights from the show.
Fuck you!
That's going to do it. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Thank you guys for watching and listening, and we will see you next time.